So welcome to a late Thursday night, and I want to apologize for not making this video last week, but I actually did so with a conscious choice because I really, this topic is really meaningful for me, and I wanted to give it, to really be able to be present with this topic. And I was just not in a space last week. There was a lot of stuff going on that I could really be present with this. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the video from last week for you guys. And I actually saw it when it came in and was very excited about it. And I have to admit, I haven't watched any of the other post videos on it. I'm actually very interested in seeing Rich's response. But this topic is the pagans in the military. So it's posted below. I'm going to go ahead and read it out to you and then talk about it for you guys. So it says, this comes from Purple Pagan 17, and they write, "Hello, I'm currently in the process of enlisting in the U.S. Army. Before I continue, I want to say thank you for the desire to serve and the service that, should you continue this path, that you will do." So continuing, "I've heard a lot of conflicting views about paganism in the military, things like not being able to believe in a life-affirming path and be a soldier, that you should never let it be known that you're pagan or that it doesn't matter, and various other views that have left me frankly confused. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the matter. Most specifically, do you believe that pagan beliefs necessarily conflict with the purpose of the military? Why or why not? What are your views on people that are pagan and soldiers? Do you think pagan soldiers are treated differently than they would be either by other military personnel or civilians?" And this one admittedly is more aimed towards at Rich. "What is it like being a pagan in the military? Does it make a difference? Thank you so much. Brightest blessings to you, Erica." So again, as I mentioned at the beginning, Erica, thank you for your desire to serve. I think that is incredibly powerful and admirable, and so thank you. So I'm going to address these questions, and before I continue too much, I actually want to give you a little bit of background of where I'm coming from. My career goal is, I'm working very hard to being the best candidate I can for a commission in one of our uniformed services. And I'm not going to go too much into that because that's not the purpose of this video, but basically to say that my desire actually is to be an officer and is to serve in the particular, with the skills and knowledge that I have. So that might be another topic there. And that I do come from a family where there's a very strong Navy, Air Force, and actually Coast Guard as well background. And the way I was raised, this was my family, although it usually wasn't a spoken thing, the idea was definitely passed on to all of us children, and I'm the youngest of many, that whatever one does with one's career is for the good of the community of all. I mean, you know, looking just at the careers of what my older siblings were doing. We've got social workers, you know, my brother's a firefighter, I mentioned Coast Guard, one of my brothers is an EMT, I'm an EMT, those sorts of things. It was always a given that whatever one does with their career and whatever they're doing in the world is for the good of everybody. So that's where I'm coming from. I come from service is something that I was raised to believe in and value. So with that being said, what do I think? Do I think that pagan beliefs conflict with the purpose of the military? Well, the military is multiple things, right? We have multiple branches. We have the 7 uniformed services, 5 of which are military. Outside of that, there's the National Guard, which kind of iffy on whether we're calling that a military or not, still service. But what do I think the purpose of the military is? And that is service. It's service to our country, service to our people. And sometimes sometimes the answer is violence, in my opinion. I don't think that violence is never the answer. Sometimes you need physical force to do things. Now, the military does not only do combat, it does not only do offense. When we have, we look at what happened with Katrina or other disasters, the military also serves in that way. And the military, depending on each of the branches, they have their different values, but all of them have the common value and now they have different names for them, but for service, for honor, commitment, duty, and those things. Do I think that conflicts with paganism? Well, the problem is paganism is a huge umbrella for many things. Does it conflict with my particular form of paganism? No. Because sometimes in the military is some of the service that needs to be done is that following orders and taking actions which result in the death of other human beings, or the destruction of particular buildings or ecosystems or things like that, yes. But in my beliefs, in my form of paganism, celebrates that there is life and there is death and it's a cycle. And so one is acting in a particular part of the cycle. If you use the maiden, mother, and crone, if that's a framework that you use in your practice, it's kind of you get to be the crone for a while, right? You're embodying that part of the goddess's aspect. Again, I'm not really a theist, but using that framework to describe it. What are my views on people that are pagan soldiers? My view, great. I think that one of the things that is defended and is by our service people, by our servicemen and women, is our rights. And one of those is religious freedom. So you want to be a pagan, you want to be a Christian, you want to be a Jew, you want to be a Muslim, you want to be anything. Great, good on you. And I think that's great. In terms of being a pagan and a soldier, well, those are just two parts of an individual. Do I think that they're going to be treated differently than they otherwise would be? Now, I'm not currently a member. And the members of my family that either are currently military or have not been pagan. Do I think that they'll probably be treated differently? Yes. I think that if you have anything that is different about you, that people are going to see that and they're going to treat you differently. Be that you are female, that you are a particular race, that people are going to unconsciously treat us differently. Should they or should they not is a different question. But I really think that a lot of how you're going to be treated is going to be based on how you present yourself. How pushy, this is my take, is how pushy are you about what your beliefs are? How pushy are you about what this identity is? If your whole identity is wrapped up in being that I'm a pagan, then that's what they're going to see and that's what they're going to respond to. And they are going to have certain ideas of what that is that you may or may not have control over. You may have influence eventually, but you don't have... Influence is not the same as control. And you're dealing with a lot of we forget how big our country is. And right now I'm speaking from the perspective of someone from the United States. I know that we do have quite a few viewers from other countries, and this is also a perception that I think that many folks from outside our country forget or are not aware of, is that we're actually very different. For me, when I meet somebody from Tennessee and I meet somebody from Wisconsin and somebody from Oregon, culturally there actually are some very significant differences. And not just from states, but from are you rural or urban, all of those sorts of things. So you're dealing with actual people. But there's something else that you deal with in the military, and that's the culture of whatever branch it is. Marine culture is really different than Air Force or Army, or there's some similarities, but each one has their own culture. And you're going to find that, I mean, you get indoctrinated into it. I don't know if that's still what they call it, but there's a period of indoctrination that's part of basic that you go through. And I'm being not a member of it, I can't tell you what that's like, and I'm not going for enlisted, and I'm sure that enlisted and officer levels have their own different cultures as well. You know, my brother is Coast Guard, and I've talked to him about it, but you know, he's not the same religion as I am, and he's also not the same gender. And I keep mentioning that because the viewer signed their name as Erica, and so I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Erica, you're female, and that might be a bigger issue than what your religion is the fact that you're female, and that's still a minority, even though we're getting better about, you know, being more realistic that, hey, females, like, really there isn't that huge of a difference between us, and the differences that exist have more to do with what training we're provided and what we're culturally expected. Sorry, that cut out. I hope it's still recording, but I was basically going to say that the differences between us are more culturally created in general than the differences really biologically. So continuing, what is it like being a pagan in the military? Does it make a difference? You know, I really can't speak to that particular being, as I'm not in the military. I am hoping to have a commission in one of the uniformed services, but it is not a combative or military service, although it is uniformed. So I know this has really been a very rambly kind of video, but basically, to recap, I think that the core of what the military is about serving our country, is about serving our people and our nation. And that, yes, sometimes that calls for you to kill or calls for you to follow orders, but that does not necessarily, that isn't opposed to or at odds to being a pagan, unless your particular beliefs as a pagan say otherwise, because paganism is a very broad thing. I think that how you're treated is going to be largely based on how you present yourself, what you focus on and provide to others to be treated as, and in terms of, and I think that you are more likely to have issues with some of the things that it's not obvious, like it's hard to not present yourself as female, or whatever particular ethnicity you are, things like that are going to have a bigger role in how you're treated. And what's it like? I don't know. Maybe you could give us a follow-up and let us know what your experience has been. I mean, this was written a while ago, so you might actually be off basic now, but again, thank you for your service, and any comments, thoughts, love to hear that below. So sorry for the long video, and thank you for the patience on waiting for it to come. So have a wonderful night and week. See you next week.